Look at a map of the Ice Age world, and you will see vast frozen plains stretching across Eurasia and North America, home to herds of woolly mammoths. Same massive bodies, same trunks, same long curved tusks as the elephants we know today. For most of the 20th century, that image carried an unspoken assumption that woolly mammoths were simply modern elephants with a thick coat for the cold. Close relatives, shared ancestry, minor variations at most. That assumption is wrong, and not wrong by a small margin. The genetic divergence between woolly mammoths and their closest living relatives, Asian elephants, does not trace back thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years. It traces back 5 to 6 million years. It traces back to a split so ancient that by the time the first members of our genus Homo appeared, the two populations had already been separated for longer than the entire history of the human genus. To understand why that took so long, you have to understand what scientists believed before the DNA spoke. For most of the 20th century, paleontologists and geneticists treated mammoths and elephants as near identical except for the addition of fur and slightly smaller ears. The logic was intuitive. They shared the same overall body plan. Their fossil ranges overlapped in many regions during warmer periods, and their sizes were comparable. Early evidence from bones, tusks, and stunning cave art from Europe supported the simple, hairy elephant model. Mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome data from the first ancient samples seem to confirm a relatively recent shared ancestry. Everything fit as long as you did not look too closely at the full genome. The Proboscidean family was understood as one origin, one event, one population that evolved in warmer climates, and then some lineages adapted to cold. Why would anyone assume that two groups diverged so deeply in the same broad family tree at almost the same time? And so for decades, the default position was a single recent divergence model. Mammoths were hairy elephants that moved north with their genes and their coats. There was evidence supporting this. Fossil dates from sites showed overlapping timelines. Everything fit as long as you did not look too closely. After splitting from the African elephant line, mammoth ancestors migrated north into the vast mammoth steppe, while Asian elephant ancestors remained in warmer forests and grasslands. Glacial cycles and expanding ice sheets and geographic distance created an insurmountable wall of ice and tundra that kept the lineages isolated for millions of years. The crack in the old model appeared quietly in a university lab around 2015. Vincent Lynch and a team of researchers sequenced full nuclear genomes of woolly mammoths versus Asian elephants, revealing 1,642 genes with mammoth-specific changes. These were involved in hair, fat, and temperature sensation via the TRPV3 gene. Then in 2021, Tom van der Valk and colleagues recovered DNA from a 1 million-year-old mammoth, showing most cold adaptations were already fixed by then. In 2023, David Diaz del Molino and colleagues analyzed 23 ancient genomes, including a 700,000-year-old specimen, proving adaptations evolved early and kept refining over time. When they plotted the genomes, the separation was dramatic. The mammoth and Asian elephant lineages sat in separate quadrants of the genetic map, two distinct ancestral pools evolving in parallel for millions of years. Let that sit for a moment. The animals that became woolly mammoths and the animals that became Asian elephants had been genetically separated for longer than the entire existence of our own species lineage. Before we get into what this means for Ice Age giants and de-extinction efforts, if this kind of evidence-driven storytelling is something you value, subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Now, imagine plotting this onto living populations. You take DNA from modern Asian elephants, the closest relatives showing about 99.96% DNA similarity, but with critical functional differences. Their genomes pull toward tropical adaptations, while mammoth genomes pull toward Arctic on every major axis. The contrast in specific traits is striking. Mammoths had a double-layered woolly coat with long guard hairs and dense underwool, thick layers of brown fat for insulation. Cold-adapted hemoglobin that released oxygen more efficiently in low temperatures. Tiny ears to reduce heat loss, curved tusks for snow digging, and a stockier build overall. Millions of years of separate evolution still visible in the genome today. This pattern rules out simple fur for cold, plasticity, or recent divergence. You do not see a gradient, you see a boundary. The proboscidean family was never one cradle. It was two parallel evolutionary paths. The mammoth lineage itself evolved further from steppe mammoth ancestors around 1 to 0.7 million years ago. Additional layers include genes for circadian rhythm to handle extreme day-length swings, immunity to Arctic pathogens, and insulin regulation for fat storage. Many changes were already present in the 1 million-year-old genomes. These animals lived on the same planet, yet their genomes stayed on completely separate tracks for 5 to 6 million years while empires of ice rose and fell. There is still genuine debate, and it would be dishonest to pretend otherwise. Permafrost bias means we have limited ancient DNA from warmer tropical regions. Questions remain open for de-extinction projects like those from Colossal Biosciences using Asian elephants as a base. Conservative models still place the split deep in the Pliocene. I went back and reread the key papers multiple times. The 1 million-year-old Attica mammoth from Siberia already carried the full suite of cold survival mutations. The thread is direct across 1 million years. Somewhere on the Siberian steppe 1 million years ago, a mammoth herded across endless tundra lived its life without ever knowing the elephants 5,000 kilometers south, whereas genetically distant as we are from some of our earliest primate ancestors. Its DNA survived in the permafrost for 1 million years. And when it finally spoke, it said something the textbooks had missed, that the elephant family was never one lineage. It was two living side by side. If this hidden chapter of Ice Age giants fascinated you, subscribe and join us for the next one. Because the deeper we dig into ancient DNA, the more borders dissolve and the more real ones appear. Here's my question for you. If the mammoth steppe preserved so many specialized cold genes for millions of years, what other hidden adaptations might still be locked in extinct species? Let me know what you think in the comments.